This was it. There was no way out. The chilling thought pierced 12-year-old Anya deeper than the 60 below zero wind. She had accomplished the impossible. She had lured the hundreds of hungry grizzlies, an avalanche of muscle and claws, away from her paralyzed grandmother. But returning, the scene was pure nightmare. 3 massive timber wolves, monstrous shadows of the Alaskan night, snarling low over the elder's defenseless body. The air froze in her lungs, the scream trapped in her throat. It was the final moment. But then, instead of attacking, the wolves did something that defied all logic of Arctic survival, changing the family's fate forever. The deep growl of the wolves was not aggressive, but a profound sound of authority. Suddenly, their massive heads rose, muzzles pointed skyward, and a unified howl ripped through the stillness of the night. It wasn't a hunt, but a warning that echoed across the plains. Anya's eyes, wide with terror moments before, now narrowed in confusion. As the sound faded, Anya realized the wolves weren't there to satisfy hunger. They positioned themselves. The largest one, with fur almost white, moved forward, placing itself between her grandmother and the direction of the grizzlies. The other 2 flanked the elder, their robust bodies forming a living barricade. The scene was surreal, defying Anya's understanding of the wild. Her heart, once a frantic drum, now beat with confusion and hope. They seemed like guardians, silent sentinels, their eyes conveying solemn seriousness. Alaska, she knew, was a place of mysteries, but this transcended any local legend. Then, a faint movement. The shadows of the grizzlies, which she thought she had exhausted, began to reappear, eyes glowing like embers. Renewed despair washed over Anya, but before she could move, the wolves acted. Without a growl, they emitted short, powerful barks, accompanied by imposing postures, hackles raised stiffly along their necks. It was a display of pure dominance, of territorial assertion. The approaching grizzlies halted, their movements faltered. They sensed the unquestionable authority of those 3 giants. The overwhelming number of predators did not intimidate the wolves, who held their ground, a wall of unexpected loyalty. Anya watched, breathless, as the grizzlies, one by one, retreated. It wasn't a hurried withdrawal, but a reluctant concession, their eyes still fixed on the cabin, unable to cross the invisible barrier imposed by the wolves. The sound of their paws on the snow diminished until the last shadows merged with the darkness. The danger of the massive predators had been averted, not by Anya's cunning, but by an unlikely alliance. Anya's legs buckled, exhausted, her mind reeling. She sank to her knees in the snow, her body trembling. Her tear-filled eyes fixed on the wolves, who now relaxed, but kept watch over her grandmother. A wave of relief and gratitude washed over her, followed by a deep realization. There was something more, a connection never imagined. Beneath the starry Alaskan sky, Anya felt an invisible bond forming between the human heart and the wild soul of the land. She wasn't just a girl who had saved her grandmother. She was a witness to an ancient secret. The wolves, once symbols of terror, were now the guardians of her family, and Anya, the keeper of this new wisdom. Her life and her grandmother's would never be the same. Anya, still kneeling in the snow, felt the cold seep into her bones. An overwhelming emotion consumed her. Her eyes, once fixed on the wolves, now turned toward the cabin where her grandmother lay. The image of the defenseless, fragile elder mingled with the sight of the 3 furry giants protecting her. It was a tapestry of miracles and fears that Anya could barely decipher. The white wolf, the largest, turned his head, his amber eyes meeting Anya's. No threat, just a depth that probed her soul. The girl, heart racing, hesitated. How could she approach her grandmother with such guardians? They had saved her, but were they a new danger? Alaska taught harsh lessons, unforgiving nature, dangerous gratitude. With trembling legs, Anya stood up. The wolves watched her, motionless, statues of ice. As she approached the cabin, the white wolf moved, clearing a path. It was a subtle gesture, an invitation. She passed between the imposing bodies, feeling their radiating warmth. She reached the cabin, the air thick with the smell of fur and smoke. Inside, her grandmother remained motionless, covered in caribou hides. Her pale, wrinkled face was serene. Anya knelt beside her, cold hands touching the aged skin. A sigh of relief escaped her. Grandma was alive, breathing softly. Anya leaned her forehead against the elder's shoulder, warm tears streaming down. "Grandma," she whispered, her voice choked. "We're safe." The grandmother, paralyzed, seemed to sense her granddaughter. A slight tremor passed over her lips, and her eyes, previously closed, opened, fixing on Anya. There was peace in them, an acceptance the girl did not understand. The elder could not speak, but her hand with effort reached for Anya's. The girl squeezed it tenderly, transmitting love and overcome terror. Outside, the wolves kept watch. Their presence was a silent promise. Anya looked toward the cabin opening, toward the shadows on the snow. Those animals, once peril, had transformed into unexpected guardians. Alaska, she realized, was not just about challenges, but about invisible bonds, wisdom that transcended human comprehension. Exhaustion hit her. Anya's body felt heavy, muscles aching. Her mind churned with the magnitude of the event. She had surrendered to sacrifice, faced down the grizzlies, and witnessed a mystical pact. The responsibility to understand and honor this connection rested on her. How could a 12-year-old girl carry such a burden? With her grandmother safe, Anya felt a new fear, a reverent awe for nature and its secrets. The wolves were messengers of a greater enigma. The night was long and the cold, unforgiving. There was new light, a promise that in the vastness of Alaska, life found ways to protect and teach. Anya, the little guardian, knew her journey was just beginning, and the challenge would be deciphering the whispers of the wind and the secrets of the wolves. Anya, the little guardian, knew her journey was just beginning, and the challenge would be deciphering the whispers of the wind and the secrets of the wolves. The cold of the cabin, once an enemy, now felt like a familiar blanket as she snuggled next to her grandmother. The elder's soft breathing was a balm to her agitated soul. But even in the relative warmth of the furs, the weight of the night's events hung over her. Her eyes, heavy with sleep and emotion, fixed on the tent opening, where shadows danced, reminding her of the silent guardians outside. The white wolf, the leader, stood there, an imposing silhouette against the pale snow under the moonlight. The other two were close by, vigilant. Anya felt a mix of deep gratitude and almost reverent apprehension. How could a 12-year-old girl comprehend such a miracle? Alaska, with its brutal beauty, had revealed an unknown face, a pact between ferocity and tenderness. She closed her eyes, trying to organize her thoughts, but the image of the grizzlies retreating before the wolves was too vivid to ignore. At dawn, the timid Alaskan sun peeked through the cabin opening, painting the interior with gold and blue tones. Anya, who had dozed for only a few hours, woke with a start. The early morning chill was sharp, but concern for her grandmother spurred her on. She checked the elder, who was still sleeping, her face more relaxed. A small smile touched Anya's lips. Grandma was safe. But what about the wolves? Cautiously, Anya crawled to the cabin opening. Outside, the landscape was pristine, covered in a fresh, light layer of snow. The wolves had vanished. No fresh tracks, no trace. It was as if they had been a mirage, a fever dream. A pang of disappointment and confusion hit her. Had they abandoned her? Or was this the nature of their pact, to appear and disappear like spirits of the wind? Anya felt an emptiness. The wolves' presence, however frightening, had brought a strange sense of security. Now she was alone again, with her grandmother in the relentless vastness. The challenge of surviving, of finding food and keeping the fire lit, seemed even greater without the unexpected protection. She sighed, her breath forming a dense cloud in the frigid air. The journey to decipher the secrets of Alaska would be lonelier than she imagined. With determination, Anya began to rekindle the fire, her small, nimble hands manipulating the dry firewood. The crackling heat soon began to dissipate the cold in the cabin. While her grandmother still slept, Anya prepared some herbal tea, an ancient recipe her mother had taught her to fortify the body. Every gesture was an act of love and resilience, an echo of the ancestral wisdom she now felt flowing in her veins. She wasn't just a girl, she was the guardian of her family, and Alaska, with its mysteries, was shaping her. Later, as her grandmother sipped the warm tea, her eyes fixed on Anya's with a depth that transcended words, the girl felt a new strength. The silence of the wolves was not abandonment, but perhaps a test, a lesson. The connection she had witnessed was not meant for dependence, but to be understood and honored in her own heart. Alaska did not offer easy answers, but it offered the wisdom to find them. Anya knew that somehow the wolves were still there in spirit, guiding her on her journey as a guardian. The sun rose slowly, and with it a new perception bloomed in Anya's soul. True strength lay not just in grand deeds, but in the quietness of daily resilience, in the flame she kept burning, and in the unwavering love for her grandmother. Anya felt the warmth of the herbal tea in her grandmother's hands, a warmth that seemed to radiate not just from the drink, but from the very love that united them. The quiet of the cabin, now free of imminent threat, was filled with the soft crackle of the fire and the elder's measured breathing. The realization that had blossomed in her heart was like a seed planted in the frozen soil of Alaska, promising to sprout into strength and wisdom. The grand deeds of the previous night, the desperate run, the confrontation with the grizzlies, the miracle of the wolves, all merged now into the awareness that the real battle was waged with every dawn, in the persistence of lighting the fire, of nurturing hope. Her eyes fixed on the grandmother's wrinkled face, where life had carved stories of countless winters. The elder's paralysis was a constant reminder of vulnerability, but also of the stubbornness of the human spirit. Anya stroked her grandmother's hand, noticing the fragility of the skin, but feeling the silent strength emanating from her. "Grandma, we need more firewood," Anya said, her voice soft, almost a whisper. Though she knew the elder couldn't respond with words, it was a way to share her thoughts, to keep the connection alive. The grandmother blinked slowly, a sign of understanding, and a slight, almost imperceptible smile touched her lips. Anya stood up, feeling the weight of responsibility, but also a new lightness in her heart. The solitude that had invaded her with the wolves' departure was still there, but now tempered by fierce determination. Alaska waited for no one. Action was necessary. Putting on her warmest furs, she grabbed the small axe and the leather satchel, preparing to face the cold outside. Before leaving, she looked back at her grandmother, a silent gesture of farewell. "I'll be right back," she promised, and her grandmother blinked once more. Outside, the air was an icy blade cutting her face. The snow, untouched, glittered under the pale sun, a white blanket stretching as far as the eye could see. Anya walked carefully, her small feet sinking into the soft snow. The search for firewood was a daily task, but today it seemed imbued with a greater purpose. Every dry branch she found and broke was a piece of hope, a promise of warmth and life for her grandmother. She thought of the wolves, of their absence. Was it a test, as she had imagined? A lesson to learn to trust her own strength? As she gathered wood, Anya noticed a fresh trail in the snow, different from the grizzly's tracks. It was a large, deep, unmistakable track. The wolves. They hadn't gone completely. Their tracks led east toward the distant village. A spark of hope ignited in her chest. Perhaps they were guiding her, showing the way, or just reminding her that nature, even in its savagery, could offer signs. She touched the track with the tip of her finger, feeling the icy texture of the snow. It wasn't abandonment, but a subtle presence, a distant watchfulness. With the satchel full, Anya returned to the cabin, her body tired, but her spirit renewed. The fire crackled stronger now, fueled by the wood she had gathered. She sat beside her grandmother, who seemed more alert. The girl described her short journey, the discovery of the tracks, the feeling that they were not alone. The grandmother, her eyes fixed on Anya's, seemed to absorb every word, every emotion. In her gaze, Anya saw not just gratitude but deep wisdom, as if the elder already knew the secrets Alaska was revealing to her granddaughter. Anya understood that the journey wasn't just about surviving, but about learning to read the signs, to listen to the whispers of the wind, and to understand the silent language of the land. The connection with the wolves, though invisible, was real, a link that bound her to something much larger than herself. She felt that every day would bring a new challenge, but also a new lesson. Alaska, with its vastness and dangers, was shaping her, transforming the girl into a guardian, not only of her grandmother, but of an ancient wisdom being rediscovered. The flame of resilience burned strong in her small heart, lighting the path ahead. Anya felt the warmth of the herbal tea in her grandmother's hands, a warmth that seemed to radiate not just from the drink, but from the very love that united them. The quiet of the cabin, now free of imminent threat, was filled with the soft crackle of the fire and the elder's measured breathing. The realization that had blossomed in her heart was like a seed planted in the frozen soil of Alaska, promising to sprout into strength and wisdom. The grand deeds of the previous night, the desperate run, the confrontation with the grizzlies, the miracle of the wolves, all merged now into the awareness that the real battle was waged with every dawn, in the persistence of lighting the fire, of nurturing hope. Her eyes fixed on the grandmother's wrinkled face, where life had carved stories of countless winters. The elder's paralysis was a constant reminder of vulnerability, but also of the stubbornness of the human spirit. Anya stroked her grandmother's hand, noticing the fragility of the skin, but feeling the silent strength emanating from her. "Grandma, we need more firewood," Anya said, her voice soft, almost a whisper. Though she knew the elder couldn't respond with words, it was a way to share her thoughts, to keep the connection alive. The grandmother blinked slowly, a sign of understanding, and a slight, almost imperceptible smile touched her lips. Anya stood up, feeling the weight of responsibility, but also a new lightness in her heart. The solitude that had invaded her with the wolves' departure was still there, but now tempered by fierce determination. Alaska waited for no one. Action was necessary. Putting on her warmest furs, she grabbed the small axe and the leather satchel, preparing to face the cold outside. Before leaving, she looked back at her grandmother, a silent gesture of farewell. "I'll be right back," she promised, and her grandmother blinked once more. Outside, the air was an icy blade cutting her face. The snow, untouched, glittered under the pale sun, a white blanket stretching as far as the eye could see. Anya walked carefully, her small feet sinking into the soft snow. The search for firewood was a daily task, but today it seemed imbued with a greater purpose. Every dry branch she found and broke was a piece of hope, a promise of warmth and life for her grandmother. She thought of the wolves, of their absence. Was it a test, as she had imagined? A lesson to learn to trust her own strength? As she gathered wood, Anya noticed a fresh trail in the snow, different from the grizzly's tracks. It was a large, deep, unmistakable track, The wolves. They hadn't gone completely. Their tracks led east toward the distant village. A spark of hope ignited in her chest. Perhaps they were guiding her, showing the way, or just reminding her that nature, even in its savagery, could offer signs. She touched the track with the tip of her finger, feeling the icy texture of the snow. It wasn't abandonment, but a subtle presence, a distant watchfulness. With the satchel full, Anya returned to the cabin, her body tired, but her spirit renewed. The fire crackled stronger now, fueled by the wood she had gathered. She sat beside her grandmother, who seemed more alert. The girl described her short journey, the discovery of the tracks, the feeling that they were not alone. The grandmother, her eyes fixed on Anya's, seemed to absorb every word, every emotion. In her gaze, Anya saw not just gratitude, but deep wisdom, as if the elder already knew the secrets Alaska was revealing to her granddaughter. Anya understood that the journey wasn't just about surviving, but about learning to read the signs, to listen to the whispers of the wind, and to understand the silent language of the land. The connection with the wolves, though invisible, was real, a link that bound her to something much larger than herself. She felt that every day would bring a new challenge, but also a new lesson. Alaska, with its vastness and dangers, was shaping her, transforming the girl into a guardian not only of her grandmother, but of an ancient wisdom being rediscovered. The flame of resilience burned strong in her small heart, lighting the path ahead. But as night fell again, Anya felt a calling, an urgency that the wolves' tracks had awakened. She could not ignore it. The next morning, with the sun still hidden, Anya, driven by a conviction coming from the depths of her soul, made a bold decision. She would follow the wolves' tracks. Not toward the village, but wherever they led, because she knew that Alaska held more than just dangers. And perhaps the wolves were pointing toward a secret vital to their survival. Anya, her heart pounding in her chest, looked at her grandmother. The decision to follow the wolves was not easy, but an inner voice, stronger than fear, urged her on. The elder, with half-open eyes, seemed to sense her granddaughter's restlessness. Anya knelt beside her, adjusting the furs covering her. "Grandma," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion, "I have to go. The wolves, they are calling me. I feel they have something to show us, something that can help us truly survive, not just wait." The grandmother blinked slowly, and a slight tremor passed over her lips, as if trying to form a word, a farewell. Anya squeezed her wrinkled hand, feeling the fragile but persistent warmth. It was a temporary goodbye, a silent promise of return. She left a small container of water and some strips of dried meat beside her grandmother, the little she had left of their provisions. The fire was well fed, and she piled more wood nearby, hoping it would last until her return. Every gesture was loaded with deep love and immense responsibility. With the axe at her hip and the empty leather satchel ready for whatever she might find, Anya opened the heavy fur flap of the cabin. The frigid morning air enveloped her, but she did not hesitate. The sun had not yet risen, and the landscape was a sea of grey and blue tones, dotted by untouched snow. The wolves' tracks, now clearer under the faint light beginning to emerge on the horizon, stretched before her like a mysterious trail. They were large, deep prints that seemed to defy the wind and ice. Anya began to walk, her small feet sinking into the snow, but her step was firm. She moved with the agility that life in Alaska had taught her, her body accustomed to the cold and exertion. Every step was a silent prayer, a conversation with the spirits of the land and the wind. The silence of Alaska was almost palpable, broken only by the crunch of snow beneath her feet and the distant sound of the wind howling through a rocky fissure. Anya felt the eyes of Alaska upon her, the immense vastness that could be both an embrace and a threat. She thought of her grandmother, of the fragility of her body, but of the unwavering strength of her spirit. It was for her that Anya pushed forward, for her that she challenged the unknown. With every turn in the landscape, every snowdrift she overcame, Anya expected to see the wolves, but they remained invisible, only their tracks guiding her. It was as if nature were testing her faith, her ability to trust a path she could not see but could feel. The journey took her through snow-covered valleys and gentle slopes, where twisted, frozen trees looked like ice sculptures. The cold was relentless, but adrenaline and conviction kept her warm. She stopped for a moment, her breath forming dense clouds in the air. She looked back toward the horizon, where the cabin was just a tiny, almost invisible speck. A wave of loneliness struck her, but it was quickly replaced by renewed determination. She was not alone. The wolves were with her, in spirit, and her grandmother, in her heart. Suddenly, the wolves' tracks deviated sharply, leading her into a denser area of trees where the snow was shallower. Anya felt a shiver. It was an unexpected change, a detour from the obvious path. Cautiously she followed, her eyes alert to every detail, every shadow. The air seemed denser there, more mysterious. The sunlight, now slightly stronger, barely penetrated the canopy. And then she saw it. Not the wolves, but something they had left. In the center of a clearing, sheltered from the wind by a cluster of pines, there was a small cairn of stones, covered by a thin layer of snow. It looked like a marker, a sign. Approaching it, Anya noticed the stones were arranged in a peculiar way, and on top there was a small object. It was a piece of polished bone, engraved with ancient symbols she recognized from her grandmother's stories. Symbols of protection, of hunting, and of connection with the spirits of the forest. The wolves had not abandoned her, they had led her to a place of ancestral wisdom. It was a gift, a silent message from Alaska. The journey was just beginning, and the secrets were unfolding in ways Anya could never have imagined, revealing that nature, in its savagery, was also a teacher and a guide. Anya picked up the polished bone, feeling its coldness and smoothness under her gloved fingers. The engraved symbols, small and intricate, seemed to vibrate with an ancient energy, almost as if the very ice of Alaska whispered through them. She recognized them from the stories her grandmother told on long winter nights. Tales of wise hunters who communicated with the spirits of the forest, of strong women who understood the secrets of ice and wind, and who knew where to find sustenance even in the harshest winters. This was not just an object. It was a tangible link to the past, a bridge to the wisdom of her ancestors, a key to survival. Her eyes traced the drawings, a circle representing the unbroken cycle of life and death, a spiral symbolizing the journey and transformation of the spirit, and the stylized figure of a wolf, her silent and enigmatic guardian. A single tear rolled down her face, instantly freezing on her skin, a diamond of emotion. It was not a tear of sadness, but of deep understanding, of immense gratitude, and a sense of belonging that filled her completely. The wolves had not abandoned her. They had led her to an invaluable treasure, to a part of herself that had been dormant, waiting to be awakened. She felt the weight of responsibility, but also a strength she had never imagined possessing, a resilience that seemed to spring from the depths of her being. Alaska, with its unforgiving beauty and constant challenges, was not just testing her, but teaching her, molding her for the role of keeper of a millennial tradition. The bone in her hands was a promise, a reminder that she was not alone, that the spirit of her people and the wisdom of the land were with her every step of the way. With reverent care, Anya placed the bone in her leather satchel, feeling its familiar outline against her thigh. The clearing, once just a spot in the vast snowy desert, now felt like a sanctuary, a place where the veil between the visible and invisible world was thinnest. where ancestral spirits seemed to breathe. She looked around, searching for other signs, but the snow remained untouched except for the tracks that had led her there, now almost erased by the wind. The wolves had done their part. Now it was her turn to interpret and act. The sun was already a bit higher, casting long blue shadows across the frozen landscape, but the cold persisted, biting hard. Anya knew she couldn't stay long. Her grandmother, alone in the cabin, needed her, and with every passing hour, worry grew. But the path back would not be the same. The bone in her satchel whispered of a new purpose, a new direction, an urgency to uncover the full message. The symbols, she remembered from the stories, were often maps, indicating not just physical places, but hidden knowledge, sources of food or shelter. There was an ancient tree nearby with a twisted trunk and thick branches, which her grandmother often mentioned in her stories as a sacred meeting place. It was a place where elders gathered to share wisdom, to weave webs of knowledge that sustained the community. Could that be the next step? The place where the bone's wisdom would be revealed. Anya felt a knot in her stomach, a mix of fear of the unknown and the excitement of imminent discovery. It was a journey into the heart of Alaskan mysteries, but she was no longer blind. The wolves had opened her eyes to the silent language of the land. With a final look at the stone cairn, a respectful farewell, she turned, not toward the cabin, but north, in the direction of the ancestral tree. A dark, imposing shape on the white horizon. Her steps were firmer now, propelled by a conviction deep in her soul, a certainty that she was following the right path. She knew her grandmother would understand her purpose, for their survival depended not only on the warmth of the fire, but on the warmth of the wisdom Anya was about to uncover. With every step, the icy wind seemed to carry the voices of her ancestors, encouraging her, guiding her across the vastness. Alaska was not just a place of challenges and dangers, but of profound revelations. Anya, the 12-year-old girl who had faced the fury of nature, was transforming into something more, a bridge between the ancient and the new, a guardian of the flame of resilience in a world of ice and silence. The ancestral tree, with its bare, snow-laden branches, seemed to call to her, promising more secrets and more strength for the journey ahead. The journey was long and perilous, but Anya felt she was on the right track, guided by a force greater than herself, a force that dwelled in the untamed heart of Alaska. She clutched the satchel, feeling the bone against her skin, a talisman of courage and wisdom, a constant reminder of her destiny. Anya clutched the satchel, feeling the bone against her skin, a talisman of courage and wisdom, a constant reminder of her destiny. The path to the ancestral tree was more arduous than Anya had imagined. The snow, which at first seemed like an inviting blanket, now became a heavy obstacle, swallowing her feet with every step. The wind howled more fiercely, whipping her face with ice crystals, and the pale sun began to sink, threatening to plunge the world into even deeper darkness and cold. Solitude weighed heavily on her heart, a feeling of smallness before the white immensity. She thought of her grandmother, of the cabin, of the fire's warmth, and a stab of doubt hit her. Was she being foolish, following invisible tracks and the whispers of an old bone? But then she clutched the satchel again, feeling the talisman's presence, and the image of the protective wolves flashed in her mind, dispelling the fear. No, she was not alone. Alaska, in its brutality, was also a teacher, and the wolves were its messengers. Finally, after hours that felt like an eternity, the imposing silhouette of the ancestral tree emerged from the blizzard. It was a colossal pine, its trunk twisted and covered in thick, cracked bark, like the skin of an elder who had witnessed 1,000 winters. Its vast, heavy branches stretched out like protective arms, laden with snow, forming a natural shelter against the wind. As she approached, Anya felt a different energy, a deep stillness that seemed to absorb the wind's howl. There was something sacred there, a silent sanctuary in the heart of the frozen desert. She walked to the massive trunk, touching the rough bark with her palm. It was cold, but beneath the coldness, there seemed to be an ancient pulse, a life that defied time and ice. Anya pulled the bone from her satchel, holding it before the tree. The symbols in the dim evening light seemed to glow. She remembered a story from her grandmother about how the elders, gathering under this tree, shared not just words, but the energy of the earth, the wisdom of plants and animals. It was a place of exchange, of renewal. With her eyes fixed on the bone's symbols, Anya began to circle the tree, her steps slow and reverent. She was looking for something, a sign, a clue the bone might be revealing. And then, in a sheltered recess at the base of the trunk, almost hidden by accumulated snow, she saw it. It was not an object, but a peculiar formation of moss and lichen, a vibrant green that contrasted with the white and grey of the surroundings. It was a type of moss her grandmother used to make a special tea, known for its healing properties and for bringing warmth to the body on the coldest days. It was rare, almost impossible to find at this time of year. Anya knelt down, her gloved fingers touching the plant with reverence. The moss was soft and damp, a small oasis of life in the heart of winter. The symbols on the bone, she realized, were not just about hunting or protection, but also about locating vital resources, about reading the subtle signs that Alaska offered to those who knew how to observe. It was practical wisdom, deeply rooted in connection with nature. It wasn't a treasure of gold, but something far more valuable, the knowledge to sustain life. Carefully, Anya began to gather the moss, feeling a surge of hope and gratitude. This moss, she knew, could help her grandmother, strengthening and warming her. It was the wolves' answer, Alaska's message, the ancestors' gift. The journey had not been in vain. She had not only found a vital resource, but also confirmation of her intuition, of her connection to the land. The ancestral tree was not just a meeting point, but a repository of life, a beacon of hope. As the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, Anya felt her journey was far from over, but that she had taken a crucial step. She had uncovered part of the mystery, and the bone in her satchel now seemed like an even clearer map. With the satchel full of moss and her heart overflowing with new strength, she looked toward the horizon, no longer with fear, but with the certainty that Alaska, in its vastness, held many other secrets she was destined to discover. The flame of resilience in her chest burned stronger than ever, lighting the path back to the cabin, to her grandmother, and to the future. Anya began the walk back, the satchel of moss against her side. The sun, now nearly a dot on the horizon, cast long shadows, and the cold tightened its grip. Every step in the soft snow was an effort, and the wind, which before seemed to carry the voices of ancestors, now sounded like a lament. The cabin seemed infinitely distant, and anxiety for her grandmother squeezed her chest. She imagined the elder alone, the fire dying down, her frailty increasing with every passing minute. But the image of the vibrant green moss reignited her determination. She clutched the bone in her satchel, feeling the promise of its wisdom. The symbols now seemed clearer, a living guide, a map to life. Alaska was not just a place of challenges, but a repository of secrets for those who knew how to listen and follow. Anya felt she was becoming a bridge between her grandmother's world and the wilderness, a guardian of wisdom being rediscovered. When she finally spotted the cabin, a small dark dome in the white immensity, a sigh of relief escaped her lips. Her legs ached, her body trembled from cold and exhaustion, but an inner warmth, hope, propelled her. She ran the last few yards, the snow whipping her face, without slowing her momentum. Opening the heavy fur flap, the familiar smell of smoke and warmth enveloped her like an embrace. Her grandmother was exactly as she had left her, eyes half open, fixed on the fire that still crackled, though weakly. The girl knelt beside the elder, her face marked by wind and effort, but her eyes shining. "Grandma, I'm back," she whispered. Her voice choked with emotion. "And I brought something that will help us." The grandmother blinked, and a faint smile, more perceptible this time, touched her lips. Anya pulled the moss from the satchel, showing it to her grandmother. The vibrant green brought the life of the forest into the cabin. The elder looked at the moss with an expression of recognition, her eyes suddenly glistening with gratitude. Anya immediately began preparing the tea. She placed a portion of the moss into an iron pot, added melted snow, and warmed it over the embers. The earthy, fresh aroma of the moss filled the air, mixing with the scent of smoke. It was the smell of healing and hope. With trembling hands, Anya poured the tea into a wooden bowl. The liquid was pale green. She brought it to her grandmother's lips, who, with visible effort, managed to drink a few sips. Anya watched every movement, every expression of the elder. Gradually, a subtle change began to occur. The grandmother's pale skin gained a slight flush, and the tremor in her lips subsided. Her eyes, once distant, were now more focused, more present. She breathed more deeply, and a soft sigh of relief escaped her chest. The warmth of the tea and the wisdom of the moss were reigniting an inner flame. Anya felt a wave of emotion. It wasn't just the tea. It was the connection, the belief, the ancestral wisdom. Alaska, in its generosity, had offered a new chance. She held her grandmother's hand, and the elder squeezed it back, a fragile gesture, but full of meaning. It was a silent pact, a promise that together they would face whatever came. As night deepened, Anya sat beside her grandmother, the fire now stronger, warming the cabin. She knew this was only the beginning. The bone in her satchel held more secrets, and Alaska more challenges, but now she was not afraid. She had the wisdom of the ancestors, the protection of the wolves, and the unshakable strength of her love for her grandmother. The journey of discovery would continue, and Anya was ready to uncover the mysteries the ice held, guided by resilience and hope. She looked at the bone, feeling that it was more than a map of resources. It was an invitation to a deeper understanding of the soul of Alaska. Anya looked at the bone, feeling that it was more than a map of resources. It was an invitation to an even deeper understanding of the soul of Alaska. The cabin was warm, and the grandmother's peaceful sleep, a gift from the moss tea, brought relief. But the night was long, the winter relentless. The grandmother's improvement was a miracle, but fragility still lingered. The village was days away, food was scarce. The bone, with its ancient symbols, whispered secrets beyond physical survival. Carefully, she took it out of the satchel, holding it up to the firelight. The symbols danced, revealing new and profound layers. The circle, once the cycle of life, now indicated a central point. The spiral, the journey, pointed toward continuous movement in space and time. The figure of the wolf, her guardian, seemed to look beyond, toward a sacred place. Anya closed her eyes, concentrating on her grandmother's stories, the legends of the shamans who could see through the ice and hear the voice of the earth. There was a legend about a crystal cave hidden in the mountains, where ancestral spirits gathered, and Alaska revealed its greatest mysteries. It was a place of power and danger, accessible only to pure hearts and resilient souls. Anya felt a shiver. The crystal cave. Was this what the bone revealed? She opened her eyes and looked at the symbols. Yes, the spiral seemed to deepen, pointing toward the Earth's bowels and the central circle, toward a brilliance that was not the sun's. Her grandmother always spoke of the cave with reverence and awe, a place where the line between the world of the living and the spirits was thin. Her eyes moved to her grandmother, who slept deeply, her face serene. The girl knew she could not take her. The cave was for a single seeker, ready to face the truth of Alaska. A wave of fear hit her. She was only a 12-year-old girl. But the image of the protective wolves, the strength she felt holding the bone, dispelled the hesitation. It wasn't a choice. It was a calling. The survival of her grandmother, and perhaps the village, depended on her courage. If the crystal cave held the wisdom to face the winter, find food, and understand the language of animals and ice, then she had to go. Anya began to prepare in silence. She replenished the fire with wood, ensuring it would last for many hours. She left moss tea ready, alongside dried meat. She put on her warmest clothes, the caribou hide sewn by her grandmother. She took the axe, her knife, and the satchel, now containing the bone and the rest of the moss. Before leaving, she knelt beside her grandmother, kissing her wrinkled forehead. "I will come back. Grandma, I promise I will find the answer." The air outside was biting, the darkness almost total, broken only by the pale light of the moon and stars like diamonds in the black sky. Anya felt the weight of the decision, the immensity of the task. There was no turning back. The bone in her hand vibrated, pointing north toward the distant mountains, where legends said the crystal cave awaited. She knew she was walking into the heart of the mystery, toward the climax of her journey. Alaska called her, and Anya, the guardian of the flame, was ready to answer. Her steps were firm, propelled by unwavering faith and a love that defied the ice itself. Anya felt the cold bite into her bones, the bone in her hand a silent, cold guide. The darkness was almost total. Only the moon and stars punctuated the sky, revealing the ghostly silhouettes of the mountains. The wind howled fiercely, promising a harsh winter. She stumbled in the deep snow, exhausted, but the image of her fragile grandmother fueled her determination. The crystal cave was their last hope. Hours dragged by, each step a battle against fatigue and the relentless ice. The bones seemed to vibrate, a faint pulse pulling her forward. The mountains sharpened, their slopes covered in snow. Anya felt a strange stillness in the air, as if Alaska itself were holding its breath, waiting. Finally, a dark fissure at the base of a colossal peak. Only inviting darkness. With her heart pounding, she lit a small torch, the flame flickering. Upon entering, the air grew dense, smelling of damp rock and ice. The narrow path wound deep into the mountain. The torch revealed uneven walls and a thin layer of ice. Suddenly, the tunnel opened into a vast chamber. Anya stopped, her breath caught. Ice crystals covered the walls, ceiling and floor, reflecting the torch in millions of glittering points. The air was strangely warm, and a soft murmur echoed through the space. In the center, a colossal ice formation resembled an ancient tree, its branches sculpted in pure crystal. In a recess at the base, there were no treasures, but petroglyphs, faded and ancient carvings etched into the rock beneath the translucent ice. They told stories, hunters tracking animals in specific patterns, rare plants in sheltered locations, how to read the ice and wind to predict changes in nature, figures of wolves and grizzlies in harmony, with the wolves guiding the humans away from settlements. It was ancestral wisdom in images, a map for survival in a relentless world. Anya felt a deep understanding, the bone, the symbols, everything fit perfectly. The cave was not magic, but accumulated knowledge, a repository of her people's ancestral intelligence. The shamans didn't see the future. They read Alaska with a depth she was now beginning to decipher. The carvings showed how to find food and coexist with nature, respecting its cycles. The language of animals and ice was a science, an art of observation and adaptation. She spent hours in the cave, absorbing every detail, feeling the sacred energy of the place. It was a deep connection to her past, to the essence of her people. Anya realized that true strength lay in understanding it and living in balance. The conflict with the grizzlies and the protection by the wolves were part of a larger cycle, a dance orchestrated by Alaska. She didn't need superpowers, but a wisdom that was already within her, waiting to be awakened. As she left, the sky was already lightening with the first hues of a new day. The cold was still intense, but Anya did not feel it the same way. Her body was exhausted, but her spirit invigorated, illuminated by a clarity she had never experienced. She clutched the bone, now the key to vast knowledge. Her grandmother didn't need a miracle, but the wisdom Anya carried. The journey back would be long, but she had renewed purpose, an unshakable strength. Anya, the 12-year-old girl, had become the guardian of a legacy, ready to guide her people through the winter, not with brute force, but with the silent wisdom of Alaska. She had found the answer she sought. Anya, the 12-year-old girl, had become the guardian of a legacy, ready to guide her people through the winter, not with brute force, but with the silent wisdom of Alaska. She had found the answer she sought. The path back from the crystal cave was no less arduous, but the snow beneath her feet felt lighter. The wind, a whisper of encouragement. Fatigue still weighed on her limbs, but the clarity in her mind was a fire warming her from within. She no longer saw Alaska as merely a place of peril, but as a living library, whose secrets awaited reading by those with open eyes and hearts willing to learn. When she finally spotted the cabin, the familiar silhouette in the white vastness, Anya felt a rush of relief and renewed urgency. Her precious grandmother was waiting. She entered, and the smell of smoke and warmth enveloped her like an embrace. The elder was still sleeping, her face serene, but Anya noticed a slight improvement, a more natural flush in her cheeks, courtesy of the moss tea. The girl knelt beside her, the bone now held tightly in her hand, not as a mysterious talisman, but as an instruction manual. With a calm that surprised even herself, Anya began to apply what she had learned. The petroglyphs revealed wind patterns that indicated the proximity of underground water sources, the location of small animals that could be caught with simple snares, and crucially, how to identify the most nutritious, winter-hardy plants and roots often hidden beneath the snow. She recalled a specific root, rich in energy, that the elders used to strengthen the weak. The carvings showed where to find it, on wind-sheltered slopes near specific rocks. Anya replenished the fire, ensuring the cabin remained a warm refuge. Then, even though her body was tired, she went out again, not for a long journey, but for a focused search, guided by the wisdom now flowing through her veins. She found the root, exactly as the carvings indicated, a small miracle of life beneath the ice. She returned and prepared a strong infusion, mixing it with the moss. When her grandmother awoke, Anya helped her drink. This time, the elder drank with more strength, and a gleam of recognition deeper than before shone in her eyes. She squeezed Anya's hand with surprising force. You saw," the grandmother whispered, her voice weak but filled with pride. "The secrets of Alaska." Anya smiled, warm tears tracing paths through her cold, weather-worn face. "Yes, Grandma, I saw, and I will guard them, and we will use them to live together." The following days were spent in recovery and learning. Anya continued to care for her grandmother, applying ancestral wisdom to ensure her sustenance and well-being. The elder gradually regained strength, not to walk, but to sit up, to speak more clearly, to share her own memories and deepen Anya's understanding of the carvings and symbols. The cabin, once a place of isolation, became a sanctuary of knowledge, a link between the past and the future. Anya knew that the journey to the village was still a challenge, but now she had the tools, the wisdom, and the strength to face it. She was no longer just a girl who had survived. She was a bridge, a guardian. The story of the wolves and grizzlies, of the crystal cave and the secrets of Alaska, would be her story, and she would tell it not with fear, but with the certainty that human resilience, guided by ancestral wisdom and connection with nature, could overcome any winter, any challenge. Alaska, in its relentless vastness, had revealed its greatest gift, the capacity to live in harmony, not against, but with the untamed wilderness of the Arctic. And Anya, at just 12 years old, was ready to lead the way. Anya, at just 12 years old, was ready to lead the way. The cabin, now a refuge of warmth and knowledge, pulsed with the life she had rediscovered. The grandmother, though still frail, sat propped up against furs, her eyes fixed on Anya with silent admiration. The girl, in turn, felt the weight of responsibility, but also a strength that drove her forward. Alaska, which once seemed like a relentless monster, now revealed itself as a teacher, and Anya was ready to be its most dedicated student. The days that followed were spent in meticulous preparation. Anya used the bone not just as a map, but as a guide for observation. The petroglyphs from the crystal cave had taught her to read the most subtle signs of nature, the wind direction to predict blizzards, the color of the ice to identify dangerous patches, and the presence of certain plants as indicators of shelter or food. She spent hours outside the cabin, testing her new knowledge, feeling the air, touching the snow, listening to distant sounds. Each discovery was a small victory, one more link to ancestral wisdom. The main concern was the journey to the village. The grandmother could not walk, and the sled they had was small and heavy. Anya remembered a carving that showed a sled made of mammoth bones, light and sturdy, pulled by dogs. They didn't have mammoths, but perhaps they could adapt something. She found flexible and strong birch branches, and with the help of leather strips her grandmother had saved, she began to build a lighter structure adapted for transporting the elder. Her fingers, once clumsy with tools, now moved with surprising dexterity, guided by the clear image in her mind. As she worked, her grandmother watched, her smile widening. "You have the hands of our ancestors, my little guardian," she whispered, her voice still weak but full of affection. Anya felt her grandmother's encouragement like a warmth in her chest. The moss tea and the root infusion had worked wonders, and the elder now ate with more appetite, her eyes regaining a spark of vitality. They talked for hours, the grandmother sharing stories from her youth, of how her own mother had taught her the secrets of Alaska, and Anya, in turn, describing the cave paintings, as if reliving every detail. Anya also dedicated herself to stocking provisions for the journey. The carvings showed where to find small rodents and birds that could be caught with simple, effective snares, camouflaged in the snow. She learned to dry the meat outdoors, preserving it for the long journey. Every ounce of food was precious, every drop of melted water a treasure. Alaska, in its vastness, offered what was necessary, but only to those who knew how to ask and receive with respect. One morning, as the sun rose, painting the horizon pink and gold, Anya looked at the newly built sled. It was simple but sturdy, with soft furs for her grandmother. She had tied the bone to the front, like an amulet, a beacon of wisdom. The cabin was clean, the fire replenished. It was time to leave. The girl knelt beside her grandmother, who was already bundled up and ready. "We are ready, Grandma," Anya said, her voice firm but with a tremor of emotion. The grandmother reached out her hand, and Anya held it. It was a grip that spoke of love, trust, and unbreakable resilience. Together, they would face Alaska, not as victims, but as its daughters, guardians of its secrets and their future.